Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. And so today I have for you the moon through the houses. And so this is the second of the planetary series that I'm working on for you. So we had the sun a few weeks ago. Now we have the moon, and I will jump in and share my screen. So moon in the houses. So the moon is what we need to feel safe, what we need to feel secure. It's our inner emotional world. It is our unconscious patterns and habits and things like that. So ultimately, the way I'm going to be talking about this is the moon and what we need to feel secure, what we need to feel safe, right? And so how it meshes in with each of the houses that it's in and kind of what that represents. So the moon in the first house, again, this is someone that is going to be highly sensitive, right? So anytime you see a planet in the first house, it's definitely going to take on a little bit more of a prominence in that person's life. Because the first house is the helm, right? It's the kind of the steering wheel of the car, the helm of the ship, whatever you want to say about it. It's where we go about taking charge of our own life. It represents us. It represents our physical body, our tangible experience here in this world, and just us in general. And so having the moon in the first house can make a person much more sensitive and much more softer in their approach. They're a lunar individual, so they would be a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more charismatic, a little bit more nurturing. That's kind of what the moon brings to the person that with a moon in the first house. And so moon in the first house people tend to be a little bit more emotional than others, or depending on the sign and the energy associated with that sign. But in general, the moon kind of softens the person and makes them more sensitive to others, and makes other people respond a little bit differently to them as well. It's also influencing the personality. So the person can kind of have moods, right? They can, with the moon in the first house, they might tend to be a little bit moody, and their emotions will wax and wane along with the moon. So that is the first house. The second house is about what we need to feel secure. The moon also represents what we need emotionally to feel secure in ourselves and in what we're doing in our world and in our life. And the moon in the second house can affect finances, finances that come in, money that you make of your own volition, money that comes in from you working, you're like your physical self, money that you make can wax and wane along with the moon. Sometimes you can have more money, sometimes you can have less money. It depends on what else too is going on in the chart. But usually, when you see the moon in the second house, there's a waxing and a waning naturally with finances coming in, money going out, things like that. What you spend your money on, you could be an emotional spender as well. I have seen this where you're in emotional turmoil and you need this one thing to make you feel safe, or to help you, or something that you crave it, you need it. It's an emotional spender, I would say, with the moon in the second house. And it's also financially, to feel emotionally secure, you need to feel secure with your finances. That's also a thing. So to feel safe, and to feel safe emotionally with the moon in the second house, there's resources that you need to have in order to feel that way, and to kind of, calm the anxiety with the moon there in the second house. Moon in the third house, these individuals can be emotional speakers. They can use and manipulate via words emotions. Excuse me. So third house is about our communication and how we go about communicating, and communications that come in, not just go out. So there can be definitely associations with emotional, using words that elicit emotions. These would be really good depending on the sign and all that. But these could be really good storytellers as well, you know, depending on what sign occupies this house. But this is also, emotionally being attached to siblings, emotionally being attached to extended family members, things like that. The moon also, in general, is representative of the mother. And so having the moon in the third house could mean that you and your mother communicate quite often, right? Or maybe there's something that's going on in your life where you communicate constantly with your mom. That could be a thing as well. And having an emotional attachment to the community that you live in, an emotional attachment to neighbors, that kind of thing, being friendly with your neighbors and all of that. And the moon, what you need to feel secure is communication, right? So that is a thing there. And this also has to do with, third house has to do with short distance trips. So if you do take a trip, it's somewhere that's going to be maybe near water as an association with the moon, or it could be a trip with your family, either your mom, right? But mostly it would be with your like cousins and siblings and things like that. Maybe it could also be owning property with siblings or owning property with extended family members as well. That can be a thing here too with the third house. The moon in the fourth house is definitely, the moon has associations, with home, with family, with property. The fourth house is also home, family, property, your parents. The moon is indicative of the mother. And so there could definitely be an emotional attachment to the parents, and kind of that unconscious patterning of being like your parents as well. That can be a thing here with the moon in the fourth house. Also, with the moon in the fourth house, property, emotional connections to properties, maybe nostalgia with being connected to a family property or something like that as well. But also, with the moon, no matter what house it's placed in, that house will see waxing and waning when it comes to what that house represents. So here in the fourth house, maybe at times there is a need to pull inward and be at home and be, with family, and then there's a need to kind of move out of that and be on your own and all of that. The fourth house is all of those things. The moon in the fifth house, there's definitely emotionally, there is fun here, right? This is fun, joy, play. The fifth house is all about your hobbies. Maybe there's associations here with the moon in the fifth house that have to do with being playful or being performative as a young child. Things like that, or really loving your hobbies and your children too. If you're someone that is, an adult and you have children, or you're thinking about having children, there's going to be a strong emotional connection with your children, and feelings are definitely going to be there for you, to be highly nurturing and caring for your children as well. But also with the moon in the fifth house, this is also your hobbies, your fun, your play, your joy. This is your romantic partners, boyfriend, girlfriend kind of energy. And so having the moon here, you could really need an emotional security and emotional attachment with like a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or even like a love affair, kind of like short-term romantic interlude. There needs to be more of an emotional attachment with the other person, with that as well, to be able to open up and be in like that kind of a relationship. For the sixth house, the moon in the sixth house, again, this is the house of service, the daily routines. This is the house of work and colleagues and coworkers and subordinates and people that you work with on a daily basis as well can be seen here. And so with the moon here in the sixth house, there is a need to nurture and take care of your physical body and your well-being, as well as you could be emotionally attached to certain idiosyncrasies, certain habits, right? Because the moon is our unconscious patterns as well. So there could be an emotional attachment. You have to do this certain thing at this time every day because it reminds you of, XYZ from childhood, that kind of thing. Or, there could be a need to take time and reflect upon what is going on in your daily life as well. Having the moon in the sixth house, this could be great for journaling your emotions as well. So taking the time every day to write down how you're feeling and all of that could definitely be a thing here as well. But the moon in general in the sixth house, the moon is a general indicator of the body itself. And so having the moon in the sixth house specifically has to do with, your health, your vitality. So your health and vitality could wax and wane along with the moon as well. Like I said earlier, wherever the moon is placed, you're going to see waxing and waning going on with what's represented by the house itself and what's going on there. So there's definitely a need for emotional fulfillment every day as well, and time for emotions on a daily basis. Moon in the seventh house. The moon in the seventh house can be, you need to feel secure in your relationships. You need an emotional attachment with your partners, whether or not that's business or, personal. It doesn't matter. There's an emotional attachment that needs to be made. This could also be good for property as well. That's another thing that I forgot to mention with moon in the second house. Is that it could be good for property management. This could, moon in the seventh house, moon in the second house, I've seen with, people that own properties, people that have, that own rental properties or own properties that they can lease out to other people and things like that, like Airbnb, vacation homes, rental properties, things like that. So moon in the seventh house can definitely be that as well, because the seventh house has to do with our contracts, our agreements, our negotiations, things like that. But in terms of our personal connections with people, it's more about being emotionally connected to the partner and being able to express your emotions and feel safe in your partnership as well. That can be a thing too, needing to feel that safety and security in partnership with the moon in the seventh house. With the moon in the eighth house, this can be a very intense placement for the moon. This can indicate psychological manipulations either by the mother or watching the mother be manipulated in one way or another as well. It's also indicative of people that are emotionally drawn to psychological situations, because the eighth house is very psychological. But it can also be a very traumatic house, right? Eighth house, but it can also be a very healing house. And so emotional healing can come through eighth house topics and themes, death, taxes, inheritance, property, things like that, are definitely a theme here. But healing can come through very, very deep, and especially because the moon is indicative of the body, but very deep and very profound healing can come through for a person if that has a moon in the eighth house. But this can also mean that, there are psychological issues going on in terms of the mother, either watching the mother be manipulated or unconscious patternings of being emotionally obsessive and unable to let go of emotions with the moon in the eighth house, depending on the sign placement and aspects and all of that, right? But in general, moon in the eighth house can be a very intense placement for the moon, because the eighth house is all about death and taxes and power and manipulation and control and all of that. So moon in the eighth house can be subjected to that. There can be a lot of emotional manipulations, like I said. Moon in the ninth house is really great for having a love of travel. I've seen the moon in the ninth house people that absolutely love, that make friends wherever they go. No matter where they go, they feel like they're home because they endear people to them wherever they go. Moon in the ninth house people are definitely very emotionally attached to their their viewpoints on the world too, as well. They can be emotionally maybe a little bit stubborn in terms of their dogmatic belief systems as well. Moon in the ninth house can also be people that are very emotionally attached to a religion that they adhere to. I've also seen this with Moon in the ninth house, where it's their beliefs and their they really emotionally are attached to their belief system, just for lack of a better way of putting it. But this can be great for, traveling with family, or having a property abroad or something like that as well, in like a foreign country, or a good distance away, like a vacation home or something like that. That could be a thing here with the moon in the ninth house as well, and owning properties at a distance from you. It can also be a thing with moon in the ninth house. Moon in the 10th house, these people can be very emotionally drawn to careers and public personas and all of that. But these types of people are going to wear their hearts on their sleeve. You're going to be able to tell how they're feeling at any given moment, because their emotions are out there for everyone to see, right? Moon in the 10th house. 10th house is the top of the chart. And so moon in the 10th house people tend to be very emotional, and there's not a lack of awareness, because moon at the top of the chart is very, very public and all of that, but they tend to wear their heart on their sleeve and just be very emotional, in general, no matter what they're doing. This can also be great for nurturing when it comes to the career, the public standing, the public reputation, and what they do out in the world, how people know them. They could be some type of caretaker, whether or not it's, they're a mom, but they're out in the public with their kids and things like that. Or it could even be like a lunar type thing. Maybe they have careers that have to do with the body, the physical body, right? Or they have to do with, I have seen some nurses with this placement with the moon in the 10th house, depending on the sign and other things going on. It's not a be all end all, but I have seen that specifically. And for people that take care of, other people in general, there's just a very charismatic way about them, and they're very emotional, and they're not afraid to show their emotions, because the moon obviously is in the 10th house. Even if they don't want to, they know that it's a thing that people will just see their emotions and see how they're feeling at that time. So it's a very public moon. So the moon in the 11th house, these people are very emotionally drawn to causes, right? So the 11th house are groups and associations groups and associations that we have by choice. And so people that are involved in, one example that I know of this is someone is involved in the SPCA. Another example is someone that is behind, Choice for Voice or something. I don't remember exactly what the name of the organization is, but they are promoting choices for women and giving women a voice in like the world and all of that. So getting behind causes, or being involved in events that have to do with, charitable events and things like that, and adhering to like social status, social events even, or event planners, things like that as well, can be seen with the 11th house. But it's more you're behind a cause and you need to be there, right? Like it's an emotional fulfillment for you to be behind something that can help and nurture and all of that, um, with the 11th house. It's actually a really good placement for the moon, in my opinion. Moon in the 12th house, this can be emotionally, people might not be aware of how they're feeling, right? So the 12th house has to do with, addictions and escape and all of that. Not addictions like the 8th house, but addictions of, wanting to pull away and escape the world around you, and just kind of check out, right? So having the moon in the 12th house can mean that well, for one, it can mean that your relationship with your mother was not the greatest. Either she was absent or she was emotionally unavailable. And this can also mean, with the moon in the 12th house, that there are definitely some issues with the mom, because it's a hidden house. It's a house of endings. But it's also, emotionally, you might not know how you feel, and you need to kind of, depending on the sign placement here, you need to work with someone in order to get access to your emotions. Just like the moon in the 8th house. I mean, the moon in the 8th house is good for, going through psychotherapy, things like that. Moon in the 12th house also, great for hypnotism and past life regression and things like that. There could also be even like a connection to, you know past lives through the mother or something like that. That could be a thing here too. But moon in the 12th house people, there's definitely a need to get some outside help to access their emotions, or just emotionally they need downtime. They need to really sit and figure out how they're feeling before they go out and do anything, right? Like this is definitely moon in the 12th house people can need more time emotionally to kind of repair themselves, because they can be susceptible to other people's emotions as well, and that's part of where the not knowing how they're feeling can come into play, especially because you're not understanding what you're picking up on emotionally from other people. So you don't know how to divest of what's not yours and what's theirs, or the environment that you're in could be toxic. And so there, people with moon in the 12th house are going to be a little bit more sensitive to that as well. So that is what I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, share, subscribe, all the good things, and I will keep them coming. Have a great one, everyone.